All right, guys, welcome back to Agency Journey. This is Andrew, and today I'm so excited to be joined by Tristan Ruml from Tortuga. Little background on Tristan. Tristan was on our team. For those of you who've been following ZenPilot and DoInbound for a while, Tristan was on our team while we were DoInbound, and then kind of through our transition, we had to let Tristan go, and that was one of the hardest things we've ever done as a business because Tristan, we've been friends for 10 years, 8 years?
Something like that, yeah.
Long time. And so this podcast is kind of a story of what did Tristan do at that point? And how did he set out, test out new ideas, rebuild an agency from essentially nothing? And so Tristan, can you kick things off and kind of give people 90-second background on your skill set, like where you come from and how you got to where you are right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background was originally, I worked at an agency about 5 years ago when I got out of school, worked in an agency there, struck up on my own, figured out that way. And while I was running my agency, I also purchased equity and ran an apparel company in there too. So I did that, cashed out of that business. Still was doing the agency thing. I always had clients on the side. Got connected with Andrew again after a couple of years. Started working with DoInbound. Then things kind of went south with DoInbound there for a bit. And so then that was probably 9 months ago now. Yeah. So 9 months ago. So I had this background. I've been working with clients, stuff like that. So I kind of left and I just kind of had this moment of, I got to figure out how to put the pieces together. Because I realized the agency I was trying to build didn't really make sense. I didn't really enjoy what I was doing. I just kind of looked ahead at what was going on in the market and what my biggest wins were with clients. And I just started going to networking events and talked to several hundred business owners, just pitching them on different things to see what really resonated.
Several hundred?
Yeah, I was like an addict for about 3 months because I just needed to get, first of all, because I needed clients, but also because, but also just because I wanted to figure out, like, I just had to get in that process. I'm like, I know I'm going to start saying the phrases, they're going to start resonating with people, and they're going to be like, yeah, I'm interested in that. Because I realized my highest value was not necessarily a traditional agency model. It was more breaking down a business, finding assets, like marketing assets and opportunities, and then leveraging them. So creating like real quick wins for a business. So that was usually my quick wins were like my biggest wins were, it wasn't necessarily, like an SEO campaign. It was more, I'm going to help you put these pieces together in your sales process. And we've made a ton more money. So trying to figure that out and just realizing like, is this even a business, not traditional agency model in any kind of way whatsoever. And they just kept pressing with it though, because you start finding that if you find the market needs something, you can build the business around it. That's really what I had to get out of this mindset of like an agency needs to look like it does SEO or it needs to look like it does print ads, and realize like, no, I can build an agency implementing and putting these pieces together for businesses to generate more money for them. And there's always gonna be people that are gonna pay you if you can make them more money. So once and then they just getting that message dialed in has been like one of the big things for me. So I really got that kind of dialed in around July, August. Been rolling with that ever since and absolutely loving it. Got some great clients, getting some awesome results. So it's been a ton of fun.
That's cool. So let's talk about some of those results. What is like a recent win or kind of some asset that you've discovered or something found with a client that you could highlight that you've learned from or like a process you've implemented?
Yeah. So I got two that I'm just really super proud of right now. Like I love my clients. So that's like all props to them because you can only figure out what's going on once you understand the business owner and like their mindset. So one of them was an agency owner. She ran a social media agency and I met her in April at an event. One of the hundreds of events I went to. I met her there. I was like, I need to figure out who the social media people are back in where I live in Columbus, Ohio. So we got connected. We were talking, and then all of a sudden, we kind of the relationship got a little bit better. And she's like, well, I'm actually shutting everything down. Like, I'm done. I'm going to go get a job. I can't do this anymore. I'm so stressed out. I'm so burned out. And it was like, she'd been doing this for 2 years. She's like, on the outside, everyone thinks I'm like killing it, but I'm crushed. I'm like all these things. I was like, well, I guess I'm a therapist now too. But so I just kind of took a step back and I kind of told her what I had been doing, how I had been transitioning and paying attention to what does the market actually want instead of getting this framework of it has to look like this. Like I need to build an agency that looks like what HubSpot told me to build. Understand what the market actually wants and find the messaging to make it happen. And so her and I had we had one session together and we basically broke down her entire business of what she had been doing, all her past client experiences, what had worked, what hadn't worked. Then we started tweaking things. and I started trying out different verbiage, start putting it together. What were her biggest wins with past clients? And her biggest wins with past clients was actually fixing the cultures. So she started doing like started doing a lot of work with these organizations down in Texas, and there had been, it was like a urgent care facility. And so there was a lot, they're helping with reviews, because she was like review management, like review marketing and stuff like that. She started seeing all these problems with reviews. And so she starts talking to the owners about, all right, how do we kind of get this stuff fixed? Like there's a lot of disconnect going on here. And so she kind of takes that brand perspective, because that's all part of the brand itself, and it ties it to the culture. And she went there and fixed it. And then they opened up more locations. But it wasn't it was a traditional agency move. It wasn't like, oh, we did so well because of social media. It's because she came in there and fixed the core fundamental parts of the business that really just made the brand. You know, how your staff treats patients is part of the brand. How the staff treats each other, and how they display themselves, and how the patients talk about you, that's all part of the brand. So we kind of came with this like brand culture mesh, which in our area is unheard of, but she turned around and sold it for $7,500 after one session together. So we restructured it, and she turned around and sold it like right away.
That's amazing.
We spent a couple hours. Yeah. So it was super cool to see her do that, but she had so much more confidence and just like a life again. And just seeing like, I'm excited about my business, because she's like, this is what I'm super passionate about, is fixing these problems. And then realizing too, like once we got going, that these kinds of businesses do exist in places like over in California, like there's one in the Chicago market, New York. So markets are farther ahead of where we live. So just kind of realizing that just because something doesn't exist where you are now, like doesn't mean it doesn't exist and there's not people paying money for it. So and then the next one, this guy is met him at another networking event too. So he runs a pavement management consulting business, which
that's a thing.
That's his thing. I didn't know it was a thing either. I was like, oh, what are you talking about? So he and I kind of broke that down. So he's selling to cities, municipalities, pavement programs. So fixing their roads. So it's a B2G play, which is really annoying, because you're selling to bureaucracies. It's hard to sell to governments. And so he and I were like, okay, let's figure this thing out. We just got to break down every piece of the business. And we just restructured his offer, because no one in that industry really knows how to market and all these other things too. So we really restructured his offer. I broke down every piece. Like we just went through, like, this guy is a G. He's been in the industry for like 20 years. Yeah. But he just hasn't been able to reach that next level because he couldn't put the pieces together in marketing. Okay. But he's got the energy and he's really coachable. Like he's all excited about it now. And so we just really put it together. And then I was talking with him. We met last Tuesday and we put together a list. I'm like, you got to contact these people. These are the angles you're going to use. This is the scripts you're going to use. And I was like, we're going to work on this together. We're going to start implementing and getting this stuff out there. I followed up with him. I was like, well, how many emails did you send? It's like, it was a list of like 57. It's like, I sent 7 emails. I'm like, well, okay. So what happens? Like 2 people responded right away. He's like, that's $40,000 worth of business.
That's
like,
crazy.
what? Yeah. And then he was like, well, I can't believe this actually works. He's like, once we go through the rest of this, he's like, it's going to be multiple 6 figures booked out for 2019. He's like, that's unheard of. Like that's going to be like double the size of my business. And so that was really cool though. We just taking like our marketing skills and realizing that once again, it wasn't my SEO experience. It wasn't me running Facebook ads. It was really working with the business owner, breaking down what's there, and then leveraging all the stuff that we leveraged to generate that business was existing in his business already. He needed the help tweaking it, putting the pieces together to really get dramatic results. And it's a lot more affordable than for a business owner than going after these other things. So those are my 2 big wins. But once again, all shout out to those clients. Like they're just wonderful people.
So it's kind of like you're helping them discover what is your strength, what is your core spot, and how does that align with what your clients are actually looking for, or the change they actually need.
Yeah, and so much of it is actually just messaging, because so much of it is how do I explain this to people, and that's been something that's been difficult for me, and I still struggle with. But it's really I see this with a lot of, I think you and I have talked about this too. You see a lot of agency owners is they kind of go in there saying like, how do you explain what you do? And it's like, well, I do Facebook ads for real estate agents. That's fine. You're telling me just kind of like a service. Like, but what are you actually doing? There's not really like a positioning and messaging of like where the light bulb goes off for someone. Like, okay, you're unique versus the 15 other Facebook ads for real estate agents people. Like you're positioned differently. And so kind of working with these business owners and like, how do we position you against your competition? You're going to beat the pants off them. And it's also going to align with like what your strengths are and putting it around what your background, your strengths, what assets you have, and like past experiences. So that's really what it is figuring out what the messaging is and the positioning. And then that's really one of the biggest opportunities for a lot of businesses.
Okay. So are you like, for take the pavement management consultant,
Yeah.
are you like working with him to like put a sales process in place where one did
Yeah.
this before,
Yeah.
or is it just scripts? Like what are kind of the missing pieces that he didn't have before that you're helping him implement?
Yeah. So he really had no sales process. So what was one of the big problems we had too is, we sit down, he's like, hey, here's the deal. He's like, I've been, this is what my revenue was, but I don't really have a sales process. I'm just getting leads here and there. I'm like, okay, so what do we need to do to get these things going? And so what I kind of step in is it's kind of customized in a sense too, because you start building out scripts. So we built our referral scripts that we turned around and implemented. We looked at his proposals, because that's a huge leverage point too. It's like figuring out what the proposals are, because it's usually like an RFP type thing with municipalities, stuff like that too. So what can we do to stand out from competition?
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is one issue. This was actually one of the things we fixed in the sales process, is that I'm sure I had this issue too. I used to, until I kind of figured out, I think it was one of the podcasts, was a agency journey podcast where I actually got it fixed, was sending out a proposal and then never hearing back from someone.
Yeah.
You send the proposal out, you got all the stuff in there, but they just pretty much just looked at the number and then they made their decision. And you're not able to walk through them what happened or why you made the suggestions, or what the reasoning is behind the proposal you sent over to them. And so he and I sat down there. I was like, well, you haven't been getting on the phone with people. He's like, you keep sending these off. He's like, yeah. He's like, I'm so frustrated. It's like, I know I can do great work for them, but I send it off and I follow up with them for 6 months and never hear back. Like, well, here's the deal. Like, from now on, you're just this is what we're doing. Like, when you send it either right before you get on the call. So that way you're there, either whether it's an in-person meeting or on the call, to explain the value and make sure everything's very clear. And it's like, okay, I got that. Once again, this is all shout out to him because he's a great client and gets work done. The next time he had one of those come through, he's like, okay, I'm going to follow with Tristan's process. He sent off, it was a local municipality. He sent off the proposal. He's like, I drove in there. They had the proposal all printed out there. We walked through it. We closed them. Once again, too, just be like, and that's like fixing that part of the sales process is like, how do we kind of connect those dots and just finding what those break points are. And you and I had a client years ago we worked on, and the whole problem with them was that we were driving them a lot of leads, but the problem was the sales process.
No follow through. Yep. What I love about this, Tristan, is the approach that you're taking puts the client at the center. And like, that's what a lot of inbound people say that they want to do, like with their content, but the tactics can be other. Tactics can just be forced on someone because that's your prescription. Where this is like leading with discovery, and it's understanding like, what is their business? Where are the gaps? How can we fix the gaps?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing too, is like, for something like pavement management consulting, no one's searching for it. So it's like really figuring out like, okay, so now how do we do content distribution? It's like, well, it's going to be mostly like LinkedIn. We can start connecting with people and things like that too. So now we're using LinkedIn Sales Navigator as a tool, because his website's fine, but it's not going to drive him the business he needs to right now. It's not it's like short term. What are the quick wins? And then once he has that revenue coming in, we can feel a lot more comfortable with like, all right, now we're going to start building out stuff that's going to take 6 to 12 months to really see the results.
Gotcha. Okay, that's awesome. Those are 2 great wins. Got some cool processes from there. Like from the customer, put them at the center, like some really groundbreaking stuff. But let's move now. Like, what are some lessons learned? Things that you've tried out that haven't gone well? What's something that you can learn from that you might be able to share, spare someone who's listening, like the journey of making the mistake themselves?
Okay. One of the biggest things that has been my problem is it kept me out of some really cool deals and just blown sales. That's tough, especially when you need the money, which was like months ago. Like, you're just in that place, you're like, how do I make this happen? And for me, the big thing was like, I just keep tying it back to this, was the messaging. Like, I had a really, like, even now, like I have an easier time explaining it, but that's because I had to put a ton of work in to kind of explaining what this looks like, because it is like non-traditional, but also what the value is that can be delivered for a client, and like figure out a way to tie stories in there. So there was one account that I really wanted, like could have done really well for them. It was a B2B, like really unsexy industry. Like their contracts are worth like $500,000. So I'm like, it doesn't take that much to do this results for them. I really want to work with this guy. We know each other for years. And you start putting that together, and I just couldn't explain what I did. Like, it just was one of those things too. It's like, I got to bring this to my partner, and we're going to talk to him. And now you're playing telephone, and now he can't explain what the heck I do. And now there goes the sale, there goes, and just figuring out, I'm like, I got to figure out, the faster, the best. I think it's like, I'm sure you guys have seen this too, even with the rebrand, it's like, it's so important to be able to explain what you do and the value it brings to people, and be able to do it succinctly. And that can take a long time figuring out what that sounds like. Because when someone says like, oh, I build websites, like the value is not the website. Yeah. I do this. Like the value is all the other stuff that comes along with that. It's going to be like, you're releasing a ton of stress on them if they got a website that's generating leads on autopilot, stuff like that. I say like, that's the angle you always want to lead with, but that's what the real value is. You're not just building a thing. The thing is not going to fix a business. Like you and your ability as a marketer is going to fix that business and deliver results. And I was so bad at this. And so I just, I was telling you, I went to all these networking events. And the fact that I only walked away with like a handful of clients after all of that, just was like a testament to how poorly I explained what I did. Just to like figure out I had to get it fixed, where you got, you're trying to put food on the table, we got bills to pay, like, well, I can't explain what I do. I don't have a good job at succinctly explaining the value of what I do. I think another thing too, like all agencies, any networking event you go to, there's like 10 other marketing people there at every single event. So how do you differentiate in the saturated marketplace too? Yeah. Because there's going to be 10 other people. They're all saying like, oh, I do, social media management. Like, how do you know that's the best? Business owners are also be like, what's the best? Like, who do I go with? And also a business owner has been educated to like, I need a social media person. But then you start uncovering that like the underlying problems of the business are not necessarily social media problems. Yeah, different problems. Yeah. And so being able to explain all this stuff too, I sound like an absolute moron more times than I care to mention, but it was, that's definitely been the biggest learning experience. And then realizing that even with a lot of clients I work with too, it's a lot of it's messaging, positioning, it's really fundamental marketing problems, but sometimes we just don't focus on that for ourselves. Any tips or exercises or resources you would recommend to any agencies that are sensing the need to tighten their messaging right there? Yeah. I mean, a lot of it's just, for me it was, I was working with a copywriter, like a great guy, Andrew Milligan, and he and I were chatting, and he started really kind of reframing things in the sense of it's about outcomes. Like we're not just talking about like sometimes we do like feature benefits of something like all like in copywriting, but also really understand like what the outcome is for that person. Like what does that look like once you've kind of stepped in there and transformed things for them? So taking a step back and like, well, for me, if I'm talking to a client, oh, we have a messaging problem, but what's the outcome? Well, it's a messaging problem. Like people understand what you do, you can sell better. Like those are all like good. Like those are all great. But when you start digging into that pain a little bit more, like, so that one client that I blew the sale on, they came to me for a messaging problem because they're like, here's the deal. Like our contracts are worth like $500,000, but we cannot explain what we do. Yeah. And realizing like, oh, okay. So your ability to not be able to simply explain what you do is costing you several $1 million a year. Yeah. So you're losing contracts. People are visiting your website and navigating away because they don't understand. You just know clarity in what you're doing. You're stuck competing with bottom feeders for, income. There's no predictable cash flow. There's also, when I start digging into the pain and what is the outcome of having those problems fixed? When the guy also told me, he's like, I have a hard time hiring people sometimes because I have a hard time explaining what we do. Sure. So now I have that problem there too with like retention, things like that too. And then also with what I do, with my specifically, sometimes talking to business owners, you start realizing like, well, when they're paying for it, it's like, I don't really want to be paying for a bunch of overhead with an agency. How is this going to work out for me? So how do we address that concern too? Because that could be a sales objection, or it's going to be, is this going to be super complex? Or is there going to be, what's it going to look like from our management perspective? Things like that. So really really taking the time to really get in the head of the business owner and the market. So it's like kind of understanding, it's basic copywriting, basic marketing stuff, but just taking the time to do that and really understand what the outcomes are if I fix this problem for them, and what are the outcomes if I don't fix this problem for them? Like what keeps happening? They keep spending deals. They're not able to hire. They're not able to, not able to grow the business they wanted to. They're just going to keep racking up debt. Nothing's changing in their lives, and be able to understand that and be able to explain it once again from the sense of I understand what the customer is going through, the potential client, and be able to explain it that way. Yeah, that's big. You got to understand. Where are they? What's a day like in their shoes? Because if you can put yourself in that state,
like then you can articulate kind of, you start at the end and you work back from there. And so it's
Yeah.
not them at the center of it, or not you at the center of it, but it's them and what they're feeling and where they want to go.
Yeah.
That just helps drop everything into place. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then once they get aligned with that too, you don't find those conversations about like, well, how many blog posts do I get a month?
Yeah.
You know? It's really like you've completely reframed the conversation where like, I think this is some, like you and I have talked about this. Sometimes like an inherently hostile relationship between like agencies and clients.
Mm-hmm.
But when you kind of come into that place where they can tell that you're living in their heads, like Robert Collier, the copywriter, said, you know, you want to enter the conversation going on in your prospect's head.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're kind of doing. And now you're at the same side of the table with them because you're like, this guy gets me and what it's costing me. But you're also positioning yourself still as like, I'm the guy that solves that for you.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not here just to boss you around. I'm better than you, but I'm here the guy that solves it for you. Let's do this together and like, let's grow your business. And that's what a lot of I think business owners are really looking for now, is they've kind of churned through all these different things, especially depending on the size. They've kind of churned through all these different marketing strategies and the tactics, and they're kind of getting a little burnt out, some of them, because the results aren't really there. And then agencies are always frustrated because like, well, we're trying to prove results and we can't really deliver on it, or, you know, there's some issue here. There's a problem with the client. Once again, like the hostility is still there. There's all that friction. So figuring out how can we really be like more empathetic of what the client's going through, but at the same time too, like being respectful of what we are and what we can actually deliver and be able to articulate that really clearly.
That's huge. So now with this in place, what is something that you're like right now that's got you excited? Something that you're learning, like looking forward? Could be a tactic, could be a strategy.
Yeah. For me, I just love working with my clients, honestly. Like I get super excited to work with my clients. I got one, we're rolling out into in October. This is going to be interesting. We're rolling out to 800 retailers with Whole Foods and Sprouts in October. Yeah. So put together that campaign, making sure like not too many things fall through the cracks, work with different vendors and stuff like that. So that's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. Once again, this client worked through like my process, and now it's more of like an outsourced CMO kind of role. Okay. You know, and I think so it's a little different in that sense of what I'm working with them on, because it's like they're taking this new initiative, just kind of stepping in there. It's like we don't have money to hire a full-time CMO. Can you step in part-time? I got my network and we leverage it that way. So I'm really excited about that because it's gonna be a really good challenge. And I got a company that's trying to enter the US market from Europe. So that's been an interesting challenge too, just in the sense of stuff that's very obvious to us is like not obvious to like certain other parts of Europe, things like that, and breaking that down. But it's also exciting, the opportunity, and also just work with business owners that are excited about the businesses they have again. You know, there's something fun about that. You know, I think and I think as agency owners tend to be very like, they really care about their clients. They tend to be very like empathetic people and creative people. And there's something really rewarding about that fact that you can kind of get that light back in their eyes of your clients. And then you have that fun relationship where you're shooting each other emails, you send each other like, you know, obviously you don't want to give your phone number to all your clients, but certain clients you become like best friends with. Yeah. And like having those kinds of relationships and realizing like, okay, we still have the professional boundaries, but at the same time too, like I'm just super pumped about your business. I'm excited about where this is going to go.
Yeah. You kind of reignite that passion for them and get them.
Exactly. I'm super excited about pavement now. So who would have guessed?
That's awesome, Tristan. Well, it's been so cool to watch you on this journey. I'm learning a lot from watching you. I'm sure you've definitely helped a lot of people who are listening right now. If anyone wants to reach out, say hi to you, what's the best place for them to get in contact or to follow your stuff? Yeah, for sure. LinkedIn. Definitely more active there than anywhere else. And then probably Facebook. You can shoot me an email, but eventually your inbox gets swamped, so I probably won't reply as fast. But if you reach me on LinkedIn or Facebook, it'll be a lot quicker. And then my website's tortugamktg.com, because I couldn't buy the real domains I wanted to buy. So you can reach me there too if you want to email me. Cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on, sharing your story here with the audience. Guys, I hope you got a lot out of this. Reach out to Tristan, say thank you. If you have any questions, send them over his way. He's always really helpful and willing to help folks out who are on their own journey. So till next week, have a good one.